Today, we're diving into the world of investment crowdfunding and how platforms like FrontFundr are democratizing access to capital and investment opportunities.
FrontFundr is basically enabling anyone to be a dragon.
Wow.
But you don't need to necessarily have this big stack of money, millions in the bank to actually do that. We enable the public to participate for a relatively small minimum investment.
Every entrepreneur's path is pretty unique, shaped by personal experiences, challenges, insights. What was your journey as an entrepreneur? I know you said that is the moment that you said that no, you want to do your own business.
I think for most entrepreneurs that decide to start a business, there is always something, whether it's been very obvious or whether it's under the surface, but there's something there, perhaps deep down, where you feel like, hey, I like to build something and I like to create something and make a difference, resolve a problem, resolve a market problem. Of course, successful companies resolve a problem, make something easier, better.
Hello there, entrepreneurs and aspiring investors. Are you looking for new ways to fund your business or invest in Canadian innovation? Remember, platforms like FrontFundr are opening up exciting possibilities for both. Hi, this is Kripa Anand, and welcome to the CanadianSME Small Business Podcast, where we explore the innovative ways for Canadian entrepreneurs of funding their dreams and how everyday Canadians can get involved in building the next generation of great companies. Today, we're diving into the world of investment crowdfunding and how platforms like FrontFundr are democratizing access to capital and investment opportunities. Now, recent trends highlight the increasing interest in alternative investment options and the power of community backed funding for startups and growth stages for businesses. This discussion today will provide valuable insights for both entrepreneurs seeking capital and individuals looking to invest in Canadian innovation. Joining us today is Peter-Paul Van Hoeken, founder and CEO of FrontFundr, Canada's leading private markets investing platform, empowering startups to raise capital from their biggest supporters, everyday Canadians. So let's dive in the episode. Firstly, Peter, welcome to the podcast. How are you doing today?
Thank you, Kripa. Great. Yeah, I'm glad to be here.
It's our pleasure. Now, Peter, it's a very interesting conversation today, right? So let's start by discussing what exactly is your model, right? Because FrontFundr empowers startups and growth stage companies to raise capital from everyday Canadians. For a layman understanding this, please go through the entire process. And also, why do you think, allowing the public to invest in a private company is significant development for Canadian startup ecosystem?
Okay, so first off, to sort of set the stage and to the first attempt to sort of get across on what we're all about. Pretty much everybody knows Dragon's Den.
Right.
This program where a few dragons in their chairs, like comfy chairs like this, usually with a stack of money next to them on the table, and they're all sort of arrived entrepreneurs, successful entrepreneurs, and they can make large investments. So the dragons. Now, what we're doing with FrontFundr is basically enabling anyone to be a dragon.
Wow.
But you don't need to necessarily have this, huge amount of big stack of money, millions in the bank to actually do that. We enable the public to participate for relatively small minimum investment. It could be as low as $250, sometimes even less.
Right.
So that makes it accessible for everyone. Now, your second question is, so democratizing investing and enabling everyone to what is significant about that? Why would we even want to do that?
Right.
So there are multiple reasons for that, but just to give you from both sides of the market, so we have companies looking to raise capital.
Right.
So they traditionally can only go to this really small group of dragons, angels, perhaps family and friends, and perhaps venture capital firms. Right. But many for these
or go to Shark Tank.
Yeah, or go to Shark Tank, the equivalent of the Dragon's Den. Yeah, exactly. So, but venture capitalists, many of these companies are actually too early for VC firms, right? So So it's a relatively small group of course, indeed, deeper pockets
Right.
that companies could go to. So what if they actually could tap an entirely new pool of capital from the public?
Right.
And if you compare sort of the annual pool of capital, traditional pool of capital going into early stage investing,
Right.
and you look at even if a fraction of a percentage from the public investable funds will be directed towards startups, it's a huge amount. We would easily tenfold that pool. So that's an advantage because companies can now reach out to a wider group of investors.
Right.
And for investors, there are many of us, we see exciting companies. Perhaps we're already buying their products or we're using their app
Right.
and say, well, that's cool. I can really see how they resolve a problem.
Right.
You
There's
know,
that
this,
trust factor.
yeah,
as well,
there's
yeah.
trust factor and also the fact of like, look, I can see this is resolving a problem. I can really see this go global and go big. And so, yeah, if I had the opportunity to actually invest in this company, although it could maybe be only $500 or perhaps less, I
Right.
would do it. So we're enabling the public to participate in these companies from the very beginning, just like dragons, basically.
Wow, that's a very democratizing approach to funding. But if I may ask you, what was that inspiring factor that you thought of this idea? Was it actually the dragons or something else?
So it was. So I moved to Canada in 2010. I'm originally from
Okay.
the Netherlands,
Right.
and I worked in banking, finance. I kind of was ready to move on and wanted to go down the entrepreneurial path.
Right.
And so it coincided with me and my family moving to Canada. We landed in Vancouver. And I started working with small companies and helping to get ready to raise capital. And so I experienced firsthand how difficult it is, how
Right.
it's a really small group of investors, and also how we're not leveraging technology at all to support that process, to connect companies with investors.
Right.
And truth be told, at the same time, so it's not me, I'm not the original inventor. I was intrigued by what I saw happening particularly in the UK, where investment crowdfunding started around 2010. So, and I saw that, I thought, that makes a lot of sense. That's exciting. We basically leverage the technology, we're opening it up, we're demystifying it for the general public, and we're making it accessible for the general public. So that sort of was the spark for me, like, yeah, democratizing, investing, and helping companies raise capital and enabling anyone to be part of that. Yeah, that's sort of thought there's something here. This makes so much sense.
Right.
I got to do this.
No, definitely. And you're doing, such a great job doing it. So kudos to you for, thinking of something, getting the inspiration from someone else and creating your own version of it, right? Now, based on your experience, what are the key success factors that, startups need to focus on to run a successful capital raising campaign, especially through investment crowding on FrontFundr?
Sure. And that's really important because it's not necessarily a fit for every company. And doesn't mean that it's a bad company, a good company, but there needs to be a fit with this way of raising capital. So first off, it's important, and that's perhaps where it deviates a bit from the traditional crowdfunding, where you donate or you get a pre-purchase product or you get a T-shirt or whatever. This is really typically for companies that are around validating or already sort of have a product and actually typically doing sales. So they started generating some revenues, and so they're at the stage where they got a story to tell, not just an idea. So that's number one, is to show that you have traction, so people can almost physically see, okay, this is not just an idea, this is something that is moving, and
It's coming to life.
it's coming to life. So it's coming to life. So that's important. Secondly, raising through investment crowdfunding, whether it's on FrontFundr or other platform, it's not that you list on there and, as I often say, like, we give you a call when the money is in. It's a very active way of raising capital. So you need to be up for that. You need to be excited about the fact that you're essentially going on a virtual stage.
Right.
And so you get your act together like any performer, and you think through and what you're going to do on that stage, from preparation to finish when the
you should
curtains
have
close.
a plan in place.
And understand that you got to actively broadcast literally your race. So that's another thing. It's very important. If you think, I don't want to do that, I just want to get the money quickly and move on, and I don't really care about getting any crowds in, the less the better. There's obviously no fit with us, then go more down the traditional channel.
Right.
And thirdly, we look. What is important is there indeed a fit with the type of business. And so what I mean by that is where we've seen the most successes on FrontFundr is companies that are in the B2C space, impact investing, tech companies that has, for example, developed an app and, that everybody can use, something that's very easy to understand for the general public, because that means it's more likely to resonate.
Relatable,
and then relatable, exactly. As opposed to perhaps a more complex B2B service, which again doesn't say anything about the potential whatsoever. It may just be more difficult to present it to the general audience. So I think those are key success factors. And you have to, and I can say that from my own experience, because I raised money for FrontFundr through FrontFundr or on FrontFundr.
Wow.
So I've been on the other side of the table. That it's a busy time from preparation to final closing. So you need to really understand that you have to allocate that time for it, which, to be honest, if you raise through the traditional channels, maybe you spend your time in different ways raising, but you still have to put significant time into it.
Very well explained. And if you were to say any sort of business that is not a perfect fit for FrontFundr, what kind of business is usually not a fit?
So, it's a question that that is also related to the stage of investment crowdfunding. Okay, so it's a relative. So it's still, certainly in Canada, it's still in its early stages, infancy. So if you want to present something and a new concept and get buy-in, you want to sort of go for the low-hanging fruit, so you want to, as quickly as possible, make it relatable to the general public. So that doesn't again mean that, okay, if you're in a particular company, there's pertinently no fit for raising on a platform like FrontFundr.
There's always a scope.
It's also a reflection of where the market is right now. But so I just want to preface that. But in answer to your question, complex B2B software in let's say the manufacturing industry may be more challenging, and because people say, well, it probably makes a lot of sense, but they can't really relate to it. They can't really actually assess whether it's a good investment opportunities, right? So that's just one example where it's just more difficult for everyday investors to evaluate the opportunity.
That's very valuable advice. Hello there, entrepreneurs and aspiring investors. Are you looking for new ways to fund your business or invest in Canadian innovation? Remember, platforms like FrontFundr are opening up exciting possibilities for both. Now let's get back to our conversation with Peter-Paul and explore the investor perspective. While we're on that note, Peter, from your perspective on, of everyday Canadians, because a lot of listeners will be interested in this question, how exactly does FrontFundr make it easy and accessible for them to invest in startups they believe in? And what's the typical entry point for getting involved?
Yeah, so first off, the entry point is how do you even get to this? How do you find it? So, well, we obviously have a website. So, go to frontfundr.com and you find investment opportunities. That's all an obvious way. But many of these investors learn about a company. Perhaps they already are a customer. We have that several times, and these companies then raise capital on FrontFundr, and they can go to their customers, for example, and say, hey, you're already a valued customer, you enjoy our product. What about if you could actually own a piece of our company? So that's another way how investors may find out about it. And of course, when we have up and running campaigns on a platform, we actively promote them through social media, and so we're building that, obviously, our community as well. But the entry point would really be that's interesting. The listing on FrontFundr. You go there, and then to your first question, basically on FrontFundr, and for each offering, for each campaign, it's the same. You can read about the overall business overview, meet the team virtually, what are their growth plans, what are the use of proceeds. So you can inform yourself on FrontFundr about the investment opportunity. And there are also documents that show there's an investor deck you can download and those kind of things, an offering document. Everything is basically made available online. Now, once you as an investor say, okay, I've seen that, I'm excited, you can initiate your investment. And to give you an idea, you can literally complete an investment through FrontFundr in as little as 10 minutes from start to finish.
Wow.
And everything is done from, obviously completing subscription documentation, initial onboarding, which we have to do. Because we're a regulated firm by the securities regulators. We perform so-called suitability, make sure the investment is suitable for the investor, transfer of funds, everything is basically done through the platform.
Perfect. So it's not a tedious process, right? As a lot of people might understand that it involves investing. It might be, it might take a couple of hours. No, 10 minutes is something that everyone can, try to take out of their schedule, especially when it comes to it's such an interesting thing because I think we'll have to do another episode 2.0 where we discuss the exact process and how Canadians can get more involved into this process. But that's fantastic to know that the entry point, that the barrier is pretty low. Now that we've discussed how FrontFundr, opens up investment opportunities, let's shift our focus to your personal journey as an entrepreneur, right? We touched upon it in the beginning. All right, it's time for a quick break right here, but when we return, we'll dive into Peter-Paul's personal entrepreneurial journey and some incredible success stories from FrontFundr. Stick with us.
Hey, you think you know UPS? Yeah, that's us. Everybody knows that. You know what you didn't know? This. Okay, try to keep up. Ocean, us. Ground, rail, air, so us. Guess who? Us. Customs cleared, borders cleared, done. Us. You still with me? Wait for it. Boom. Us. Intelligent, automated, fulfillment. Us. Yep. Healthcare too. Digital your thing? Yeah. Well, book it, ship it, track it. You feeling me yet? Yep. That's all us. That's all UPS.
Welcome back, listeners. Let's continue our conversation with Peter-Paul. Every entrepreneur's path is pretty unique, right? It's shaped by personal experiences, challenges, insights. What was your journey as an entrepreneur like? I know you said that is the moment that you said that, no, you want to do your own business. Is it something that you always thought of, even as a kid, even when you were in school, you always knew that, oh, I'll open my own business one day? What exactly led you to start your own entrepreneurial journey?
Right. So, I think for most entrepreneurs that decide to start a business, there is always something sort of, whether it's been very obvious or whether it's under the surface, but there's something there, perhaps deep down, where you feel like, hey, I like to build something and I like to create something and make a difference, resolve a problem, resolve a market problem, which of course successful companies resolve a problem, make something easier or better. And so it's probably has always been, sort of deep down there, that one day I there's a sort of a calling, I want to do that. But the path to that is for all entrepreneurs obviously different. For me, it was, I started with larger companies. I worked in consultancy for a while. I joined a bank. This was back in Europe, in the Netherlands. And I did it with lots of joy for many years, 9 years. And but then I think that feeling like, hey, this is all, I enjoy this and I can obviously carry on here. And but is this really what I want to do? The rest of my life, and sort of walk that path. And so I already decided before we moved to Canada, like, look, I want to move on. I'm intrigued by finance and investing. There's also a lot that can and should be improved in that industry. So it's, but I was always been intrigued by it. But I had this sense like, look, I'd like to do something from a more entrepreneurial perspective. So that that coincided with moving to Canada, and that was actually a big decision, certainly because I already had a family, 2 children, and to move to Canada and basically start all over, because I was in a pretty comfortable situation. So you basically throw all of that overboard.
Right.
But that's the whole exciting thing about it, that really kind of forces you to
Your
move
best.
do your best, move in a different direction, and just keep swimming and keep your head up and experiment and certainly just hang in there, and I think for every entrepreneur, like, following through and being very perseverant,
Right.
and believing obviously in what you want to achieve is extremely important, because there will be a lot of people around you say, oh, nice idea,
Right.
but here's why I don't think it's going to work, or so
Mm.
so you want to listen to them, you want to validate it, but at some point you got to draw your own plan and say, no, actually I really see an opportunity, and follow through. So it was partly moving on, and then when, as I mentioned earlier, working with small companies,
Yeah.
recognized how challenging it is. So that was the problem basically,
Mm.
and there were already enablers in place like technology,
Right.
that I thought, hey, this
That-
makes sense. And particularly the idea of, I got particularly excited about the fact, like, hey, to open this up and make it accessible and transparent, and extend it from beyond the 2% that traditionally only have access to invest early.
Right.
That excited me. There's a purpose. I see FrontFundr as a purpose-driven company.
Wow, that's a very wholesome answer, Peter. If I were to give you a time machine and say you were to travel a couple of years back into the past, what would you change about your entrepreneurial journey? Maybe start it sooner?
Yeah,
Hmm.
would start it sooner. But obviously in hindsight, it's always obviously in the rear mirror to look back and say, but that would be one of them. I'd say, yeah, could have started
yeah.
earlier.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Great. On top of your mind, Peter, do you have any, anecdotes or a couple of examples of, particularly successful capital raises that have taken place on the FrontFundr platform, and what exactly made them stand out?
So an anecdote and actually a story that for me
Yeah.
was very meaningful was in the early days. I was still back in Vancouver,
Okay.
and we just had the first 3 listings on the platform.
Okay.
And so it was really proof of concept. Like, there was nothing yet,
Right.
and it's the journey of starting to find believers in this too. And so we had 3 companies that we started with. One of them was a craft brewery.
Okay.
And so it just launched, and so it was all very exciting and kind of nervous, like, how's this gonna go? And so I remember after a day work, I lived on the North Shore, so I missed my connection. So I thought, let's just go for a beer, because I had to wait longer. So
Right.
I went to the bar and just for a drink. And so I looked at on the bar, on the counter, there was this coaster from this brewery.
Oh,
So
same one, yeah.
the same one, and so Persephone it's called. And so I asked that bartender, see, look, this is interesting, and do you know these guys? And he said, yeah, I know. He said, I know them. So yeah, it's a pretty cool brewery, and I like their beer. And so he was sort of telling about that, and then he carried on, and he said, it's actually pretty cool. He said, you can actually invest in this company. And I said, that's cool. How does that work? So, they're listed on this platform. And he was sort of thinking, and even knew the name of the platform. So yeah, there's a FrontFundr. They're listed there, and you can actually invest in the company.
Oh
So he
my
said, I'm actually
God.
thinking myself to put some money in because you can invest for as low as $250. Perhaps it was even less at that time. And so he said, you should check it out too. And so
Oh my
so
God. And you were like,
I
I'm
pulled
the
my-
boss.
so I said, I pulled my business cards and look, I know
Oh
these
my
guys.
God.
So
He was
that was a
very
funny
shocked,
story.
right?
Yeah. But the for me, that was really cool because
Mm.
he was telling me the story,
Right.
so it was a huge testimonial for, hey. So
Right.
at that time I thought, yeah, we're onto something here. There's something here. Yeah.
Wow, that's very powerful. And you actually know that your business is working when people start talking about it, because word of mouth makes a hell of a difference. So,
Right, right.
congratulations on that success. And that's a very interesting story. To conclude, Peter, before we let you go, if there's any one piece of final advice that you have for our listeners that you want them to, take away from this entire discussion today, what it is and why?
I would take, as I said earlier, this is still, certainly in Canada, this is a new movement, I would
Right.
say, and obviously, I personally am very excited about it, and I hope more and more people get excited about it. So, takeaway for me is look, everybody is now empowered to drive. Everybody's empowered to be a change maker, basically, and they can do that they can vote with their investment dollars, if you like,
Right.
by supporting and investing in these companies. And again, you don't need to have deep pockets to do that.
Mm.
So I would say to the general public, check that out. Times are changing. It's where you can now really invest in companies from the very beginning. Where we also know that, of course, companies fail, but that's
Right.
also why you can invest smaller amounts when companies succeed. And if you're part of that, you also can have a really interesting return. So I would say that, and yeah, and we're a marketplace. On the other side of the marketplace, to entrepreneurs, I would say, explore this. There is a new opportunity. It may fit really well for your company. And what I forgot to say and was really important is, and I can say it again from experience, I have over 1,300 investors in my company, and
Wow.
and through multiple raises, and we're still a relatively small company, but I see all those investors as my supporters, my brand champions,
Of course.
and they helped with the word of mouth. They
Right.
they send companies to us like, hey,
Right.
check it out. So it's extremely powerful for companies as well to create awareness and create a following and people that literally support your company by investing in them. So I would say this is a movement. It's gonna get bigger, and I'm inviting everybody to be part of it and check it out.
Amazing. That's $1 million advice right there. And also, big congratulations on FrontFundr completing its 10-year anniversary. Do you want to reflect on the last 10 years? How was it for you?
Yeah. So it's indeed, it's been last week, May 29th. It's
Yeah.
been exactly 10 years ago that
Yeah.
we processed the first investment through
Right.
FrontFundr.
Uh-huh.
And, it's obviously time indeed for reflections and looking back. And first off, it obviously flew by. It's crazy how fast
Right.
time goes.
Flies, yeah.
Time flies. And secondly, it's I said earlier, this is still an industry and it's early days, but I'm proud of how far we got as a company, as FrontFundr, certainly because we were the first mover. We've been removing barriers and and working with regulators and all of that to pull this off, and I'm very proud of that the FrontFundr team has been able to do that. And I'm excited about the future ahead, and
Right.
on to the, who knows, next 10 years.
Exactly. Great. Thank you so much, Peter, for coming on this podcast and sharing your expertise with us. I enjoyed this conversation a lot. Thank you.
Me
so
too.
much.
Thanks for having me.
All right, well, that was an insightful conversation with Peter-Paul Van Hoeken, founder and CEO of FrontFundr, on the exciting world of investment, crowdfunding, and how exactly it's empowering Canadian startups and everyday investors. FrontFundr is making it easier for everyone to participate in building the future of innovation. We also want to wish FrontFundr a very happy 10th anniversary. Thank you so much for tuning in to the Canadian SME Small Business Podcast. We really appreciate your continued support. Be sure to subscribe to our podcast for more expert insights and resources that can help your business thrive. Also, don't forget to visit our website, CanadianSME.ca. And lastly, a very special thank you to our podcast partners, RBC, UPS, A1 Global College, and Google, for their ongoing commitment to empowering small businesses in Canada. Until next time, keep innovating and striving for success, and we'll see you in the next episode. Kripa Anand signing off.